Welcome. My name is Leah Farrar, and I'm here to tell you a story about 3 different Friday night dates. So, the first night, we met online, we hit it off pretty well, and we agreed to meet up in a coffee shop downtown. Well, I showed up. An hour later, I was left drinking a cold latte on my own, wondering where my night had gone. The second date, we also met online, hit it off pretty well, but then came that endless back and forth. Well, are you free on Friday? Oh, I'm busy this Friday. How about Saturday? Saturday, I've got plans with my boys. What about Thursday? On and on and on until the conversation just fizzled out. And the last one is about a couple friends of mine, pretty much any friends of mine. We're all busy young professionals in school and in work, and Friday nights roll around and, well, by the time you're both free, the thought of having to find somewhere to go on a date is just too much effort. So you end up watching Netflix in bed every Friday. So what does this tell us? Well, in the modern world of dating, there's actually 3 big issues. First, people. You want someone to go on a date with. Second, time. The time to set up a date, the time to meet, when everything else is pulling your attention. And last, activities. You want something fun to do. This is where RightDate comes in. We believe that your time is valuable, your time matters. After dozens of customer development interviews, we have come up with the following idea. First, people want local activities. Second, they want activities that enrich them and feed into their community. And last, they really want to give back. Millennials are some of the most volunteering and civic-oriented of all of the generations. We love spending our time giving back to people, so why not harness that? Well, if you're a business in one of these 3 areas, you can use RightDate. You build a profile on the app where you list an activity or an event and the times you're available. Then that profile goes live and the app goes to work for you. So if you're singles or you're that couple, you can use RightDate. So I'm going to walk you through what it looks like if you're a single user. First, let's take Megan here. She's 25, all right? So she goes through the app, looks at a couple different people, figures out which one catches her eye. Kevin, she thinks his profile looks pretty cool. Now in most other apps, this is where you start chatting back and forth. Oh, when are you free? Oh, when are you not free? None of that. Instead, if he likes her, they get invited on a date. Right there, all of that interim is taken out. We set you up on the date, and more than that, it's to a real activity. If you've never been, the dachshund races are hilarious and amazing, and yes, they're a real thing that happens in DC. What about couples? How do they fit in? Well, if you're a couple, you don't actually get paired with someone else. You're already in a relationship. Instead, we pair you with the event or the activity based on your availability. Couples are one of the most often overlooked people in the dating world because we think dating just means about meeting someone new. It's about going out, getting to know someone else. And research has shown that actually if you go on to exciting new events with your significant other, your relationship is better, it's stronger, and it's more likely to last. So RightDate takes the matching component with other people out for our couples and instead pairs you with an event at a time you are available to go to for you and your partner. Now, as you're probably thinking, this is a pretty crowded space. There's a lot of apps and websites already working in the dating space, but none of them are doing actually what we're doing, and none of them can pivot that easily to do what we're doing. Because we believe that it's as much about the activity you go to on that first date and the second date and the 100th date as it is about the person you go with. Because you meet and learn about the people you're with through the activities you go to. So our difference is that we focus on setting up real-world dates for our clients. We take care of scheduling for users, and we include couples in the experience. These 3 things exist together in none of the other dating sites. Real people in the real world. So how does that look in terms of a business? Well, I'm the founder and hopefully CEO. I am a 3rd-year law student here at GW Law School. so I'm graduating in about a month. I spent 2.5 years before law school working in startups in public relations and marketing. With zero budget, because they were tiny startups, I managed to run local, national, and international campaigns for the events and activities that were featured in a number of major publications, including those listed above. So I know how to market something. I also just finished a stint at the Small Business Clinic here and regularly volunteer with business development and work in the area. I've been consulting with two individuals who are looking to come on this summer. Both of them are developers. And of course, my mentors. Deborah Ross runs a large community calendar function, and Franklin actually is the founder of a number of dating sites. So what's the rollout look like? Year one, we'd build in Washington, D.C. Also let us work any kinks through in the app. Year two, we launch in Austin, Texas, and San Francisco. Year three, we expand to 3 more cities and increase from there. You're probably wondering where I'm getting these cities from. Remember Deb? Deb runs kidsoutandabout.com. It's a community calendar for families. They have already scraped a number of cities across the country for activities and events largely focused on local and nonprofits. She's offered to partner with me. I can launch along her networks. So not only would she introduce me to the businesses in those areas, but, well, there aren't as many single parents in her network. There's over 3 million couples and parents who are looking for things to do, and she would offer to introduce me to all of them. Marketing? Well, other than typical marketing, we'd focus on 2 main areas when we launch in a new city. First, our launch events, which would actually partner with the businesses and nonprofits that we're looking to build our company with. This way, we utilize their networks and bring them into ours. Second is universities. Huge population of singles, very interested in getting out and involved in their communities. So what do the numbers look like? Well, as you can see, this is a business that will require customer development reps in individual cities and will require continuing research and development in the nature of the app. But it's also a business that can have a very rapid growth if it's done right off the bat. So how are we going to be earning the money for those sales? Well, we'll earn it in 2 different areas. First is users. Though initial use of the app is free, users can subscribe for additional features, additional events, activities like that. There are also one-time add-ons. You can choose to purchase, say, if you instead of being invited on only 1 date a week, maybe you get invited on more. Last, if you miss a date, once you accept an invitation on a date, you have a window where you can communicate with the other person and decide if you really aren't hitting it off, you can back out. But if you're within a couple hours of the event and you decide to withdraw, or you are a no-show to the activity, you are charged a small service fee as a user. This is to encourage people to actually follow through. And last, we'd like to host single events in areas and couple events as well with our partner organizations. Speaking of the partner organizations, we'll use promoted rankings, so as if you want to pay a small amount, your activity will appear more often in the results for couples. We'll also use advertising and in-app purchases. Now the in-app purchases, what I mean by that is as we develop, and you can, I run back to the pro forma, you can see that that's something that increases as we go. We'd actually like to make it possible for people to purchase vouchers or tickets within the app. That's a couple of years down the road, but that is a long-term goal. So what's next? Where do I go from tonight? Well, with the $3,500 from this business plan, the first thing we do is I'd incorporate the business and hire developers full-time. We're in wireframing, and we've gone through a number of rounds of the basic layout, but we do want, at this point, we're ready to go into prototyping. So then over the rest of the summer, we would build the prototype. From there, in the early fall, we'd test launch in the DC area with a control group. During the June, July, August time period too, we'd also be able to reach out to local businesses and nonprofits within the area to begin setting up our launch events and activities and our ongoing partnerships. So again, RightDate is about local activities and events that are convenient for people to go to, that save you time. So, I mean, we hope you meet the person that you love on our events. But if you don't, if it takes a little bit of time, you'll still have an amazing time on dates going through our app. And last, it's community-based. People deserve and belong to their communities, and they should have a way of reaching back and learning more. So that's RightDate. We're a community-oriented, nonprofit, local directed dating function that's all about the dates, not the actual app. And we hope that you like it. Thank you.
First off, good presentation.
Thank you.
Are dating websites adding your service onto their sites?
So the concern we have with that method, though that is an excellent question, is that part of the core of what we do is that you can actually, it takes out all of the effort of setting up the date with another person. We set it up, you just decide if you like the other person. So right now, the goal is to launch independent and bring people in through our own app.
Thank you. I also thought it was a good presentation. I did have one, I don't want to use the word concern, but it almost seems like there are two businesses here. There's the business associated with finding the right date, and then there's the business associated with, once I've got a date, let me find the right event. And I wonder if through your research or through your analysis of the proposition, whether you thought you might actually get a lot more traction trying to not deal with the dating side of things so much, which is a bit of a cluttered market, and really focus more on what I think is really interesting, which is for people who are already in a relationship, finding interesting events for them in their local neighborhoods or their local cities that match their preferences, and then turn this completely upside down and focus on the business end of things, get that in-app purchase, get those event-driven markets. You see where I'm going with this. I'd be curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, and that's, so first off, that is absolutely, the couples and the in-relationship is, we think, one of our largest markets and one that's untapped. And you're absolutely right that there's almost two different matching that's going on. Do you match with the other person, and do you match with the event? So that's one thing that we're curious to see in the prototype phase, how well that'll roll out with singles. Are we going to get enough traction with singles? Which I think is one of the best things about this plan, is that if that ends up being that we're getting more hits with the couples, it's a very easy pivot away from the original end of it. But to answer your question, that is something we have absolutely considered. We do think that there is a strong interest based on continuing customer development interviews. There's a huge interest in the single population in this. But I would have to say that I think, to clarify perhaps what was an underlying question, I believe in there, the matching with the event is actually our fundamental base, and then we're matching the people on top of that. So it's about the event matching first, and then we build from there.
I also agree. Great presentation and very clear in terms of what you're offering. But my question really is just about your customer acquisition model. So obviously it's going to take a lot of legwork and a lot of heavy lifting in order to get the right amount of users that you're really going to need to be revenue positive. So I know that you mentioned events, you mentioned many other avenues, but in terms of your opportunity here, I really do see a lot with your partnerships, especially when you, I can't remember the name of it, but you discussed the website for families and for children. Are there other partnerships like that on the horizon, and do you plan on really focusing on that end of things in order to help drive customer acquisition?
Yes, so we are communicating with several other sites for the sake of the ongoing conversations. I didn't include the names, and because the conversations are still ongoing, I'm not comfortable disclosing them now, but that is, yes, working with the other organizations and working with groups like kidsoutandabout.com, which was the one you mentioned, which have the user base, is absolutely one thing we're looking to do. And again, so any nonprofits or any businesses that we partner with, we want to be able to utilize their customer base too, because we feel it's a very beneficial relationship for both of us, because we also provide them marketing and exposure that particularly smaller nonprofits and local businesses may not be able to do or acquire on their own.
Maybe just to expand on that point a little bit, you have a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. You need attendees,
Yes.
and you need events. And so where do you think you're more constrained? And talk a little bit about what side brings the other side. What do you need first, and how are you going to get it?
I think that we're more constrained on the attendees, if only because there's an absolute glut of information out there. Now, the benefit of this is in terms of will people be interested in the app and its offerings, there are actually people have between 3 and 4 apps, dating apps on their phone that they cycle through. So that's there too. But bringing attendees in is going to be the bigger issue than finding organizations to partner with, because particularly because we're focusing on nonprofits and smaller businesses, a lot of them are really looking for, based on, again, discussions we've had and interviews, a lot of them are really looking for a partnership or what we're offering, which is kind of mostly free exposure. So in terms of bringing attendees in, some of that comes down to just feet on the ground work and marketing, which is where focusing on things like universities or existing mailing lists when we partner with organizations is a great way of doing it. But yes, to answer your question on where the chicken and the egg falls, the events are going to be easier to acquire than the attendees.
Can you talk a little bit about the how you envision the matching between individuals and the events? Because I think that's probably your most important sauce or secret sauce, right? Is that this is an awesome event and I'm gonna really love it, but maybe I hate dogs. I don't want to go to that dog thing. So how do you know that, and how are you going to scale that?
Yeah, and so that's actually, we have a model that we'd like to develop as time goes on. So the first part is that when you first build your profile, you'd be able to indicate broad areas of interest for activities. So maybe, I really like going outdoors, but maybe, my sample person, Megan, really doesn't like the outdoors and doesn't like dogs. So yeah, the dachshund races would be a terrible thing to match her as an event to go to. But, so when you first log in and build your profile, you can indicate broad categories of interest. Now, as the app continues to develop, one thing that we would like to continue to add in is 2 components. One, we'd gain feedback from users based on the types of events that they accepted and the types that they turned away. And let me see if I can jump back. It's quite a ways back. But in my matching slide, you actually have the ability, I don't know if I can get back fast enough, but I'll talk as I go, to choose yes, no, or other, which would include things like, I'd like to meet up with this person, but not at this activity. In terms of matching with the activities themselves, you also have the ability to put in your weekly availability for the time function. Now, expanding going forward, one thing that we've heard a lot in customer development interviews is that people do like quizzes, but they like quizzes that are more entertaining and fun-based. So we'd like to build, as we go forward, a more interactive model so people could answer questions, whether it's a funny little BuzzFeed style quiz on, what's your favorite type of dog, which would give us information based on what quizzes they go to and what they answer. That's down the line as we develop, but to start with, it would be based on user inputted information at the beginning.
That's time?
Oh, yes. Thank you.